Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We got Rudo and AJ coming to you live today, talking more draft. We should throw it out there. If you haven't heard, on Tuesday, we will be doing a mock draft with all of the ALLCITY folks, including everyone from PHNX and CHGO. We divvied up the whole first round. It should be a fun one. I get to pick for Anaheim, so I am trying to sell the second overall pick to the highest bidder, but we'll see if I can get anyone to bite. It should be fun.
You're in negotiations with one of the other GMs?
I am.
Stalled out or what?
I mean, he never got back to me. So he was like, I want it. And I was like, here's the cost.
All right.
So we'll see. I have to pick Adam Fantilli. I won't feel that bad about it, to be honest.
I am in the fortunate position of being the Nashville and Winnipeg GMs.
Living large.
Yeah. I still want to trade Matt Duchene for Blake Wheeler or some dumb shit just because nobody can stop me.
Just intermingle your own pieces as much as humanly possible.
Exactly. Like, just do like multiple block. Like, let's do Hellebuck for UC Soros. Yes.
Just because you can.
Yeah, exactly. I have the power.
So should be fun. Keep your eyes out for that on Tuesday in the lead up to the draft. We'll also be talking a bunch of draft stuff today. Before we do, obviously the big news of the last couple of days, the NHL Board of Governors meetings are currently going on still. Day one, there was mostly talk about the salary cap, talk about the cost and evaluation of teams, and of course the talk about warm-up jerseys, which look,
imagine you're sitting down and you're like, all right, we need to go through the league's most pressing issues,
and warm-up jerseys is the first thing.
Warm-up jerseys is on your day one docket.
It's kind of ridiculous. From a personal standpoint, to me, obviously it's extremely disappointing. The underlying reasons that the NHL is choosing to do this and their lack of support for their own initiatives, such as everyone can play. But also, they could just be making more money by creating and allowing the players to wear these jerseys, no?
Yeah, I mean, game-worn jerseys are going to be worth more than, I guess, game-worn jerseys.
Yeah.
Warm-up worn jerseys are just going to be more valuable and worth more money than the jerseys if they just sell one jersey per player.
Yep.
Or they just slap a nameplate on it and the player never even comes close to the thing.
Yep.
Okay. It just seems obviously the focus has been on the Pride jerseys.
Of course.
That's what started all of this. Ivan Provorov just decided that
he didn't want to wear it. Yeah.
He doesn't hate anybody, but
he just doesn't want to wear a rainbow, which stands for things against what he stands for.
Yeah. Yep. The rainbow hurt his fifis, so it is what it is, man. It's disappointing. It's predictable that the NHL would be like, well, instead of continuing to make news because a couple of players are doing this, we're going to tear down this entire system
to the floor. Yeah.
Yeah. And cater all of it specifically to them.
This is something we've talked about in previous shows in multiple years where we want them to wear these jerseys in a game.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? And not just the Pride jerseys. The military ones, the Vancouver's Dolly ones are like amazingly cool. And now none of these jerseys are going to get worn.
Yeah.
In warm up, let alone a game.
Yep.
It's just it's super disappointing on multiple levels. And I really, really don't like when we have to go on here and do shows about how the NHL continues to be its own worst enemy.
And continues just from a social standpoint, from a caring about its fan base, just continues to be disappointing. It's a huge letdown for me that it feels like we're moving in the wrong direction, to be honest, in terms of inclusivity and making people feel like they are welcome in this space. The people that were not feeling welcome were. I don't want to get into this. I'm disappointed, man. I just think that bigotry wins another battle.
Yeah, it's usually I can rely on the NHL's greed wanting money to overcome that, but not this time. It sucks.
Yeah.
No real two ways around it.
Yep.
Hopefully the NHL does better next time. That's all I can really say.
Yeah.
Anyway, nothing super interesting through the rest of day one of the Board of Governors. As expected, the cap's only going to go up $1 million.
Not allowing reporters other than Elliot Friedman to be there
was a little weird for sure.
What is that?
Don't really understand that, but
I think from a journalistic standpoint, that's very concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. How many times have we gone on here and explained how stupid the NHL is when it comes to marketing their own sport? But
yeah, I mean, this is way deeper than marketing. This is
I understand.
This is a controlling messaging.
You have serious concerns about exclusivity and what is being allowed to be reported and all sorts of other stuff there. But
you have one reporter that you handpicked that's allowed to go there. How do we know that person's not being told what he can and cannot say about what's actually being said in those meetings?
Yep. I don't know. I hate that we have to do this every year and be like, here's the NHL still screwing this up.
Yeah.
But here we are.
I mean, what Dana White said about the NHL was true.
I don't know what he said.
Oh, man, it's not great.
No, that sounds like Dana White.
It's not great. He was right, though. Basically, the NHL doesn't know what it's doing marketing-wise.
I mean, I think it's safe to say they haven't known what they're doing for the past decade marketing-wise.
It's tough. So
you had hoped the new television deal was a step in the right direction, but it's hard to feel like that in this moment. So
yeah,
I don't know. There will be more governors meeting stuff. I'm sure there will be NHL PA conversations as well. We'll see if anything else comes out of this stuff. I'm gonna move on at this point. AJ, I still don't know if I want to take a goalie in the first round. But there's
okay.
around the league, I've been told by multiple people that there are guys looking at least Michael Hrabal in the first round.
Yeah, I think that every year we kind of do this dance where we're like, the teams that it makes the most sense to are contenders who like don't have any major needs.
Yeah.
Teams with multiple picks who are comfortable taking that chance.
Yep.
This year, the teams with multiple picks, like St. Louis, is I think the only one that has one late enough in the first round.
Doesn't make a ton of sense for them to take a goalie.
Like it with 3 first rounders, they're really the only team of the owns multiple first round picks teams that I think you could make that argument for, where they use 10 on a defenseman, they use their other pick in the 20. They're both late in the 20s.
I think it's like 29 and 30 or something.
Yeah, they're both late. So like whatever their next pick is, I don't have the order in front of me. They use on I don't know, who cares, somebody, and then
a goalie.
I think one of them is 29th. And if they if they were to use 29 on the goalie, that one would make sense to me, where it's like, cool, totally, I get it, because they could get would you be overdrafted? This is the conversation here: is would you be over drafting a guy on your list? Like, would you be drafting a guy, Hrabal? You don't see Hrabal on on very many lists in the 20s. Not many. Some of them, but not many of them. They're mostly he's in 30s and 40s, right?
Sure. He is the only goalie up there, though.
But there are, Adam Guyan is the other one that you see mentioned as a second round guy.
Yeah.
And there's two more that you could probably make an argument for going in the second round. But that's where if you're drafting your St. Louis, you've already picked twice in the first round. You're sitting at 29 and you're saying, hey, we don't pick again for however long it is, whatever the number of picks is. We think that this guy will be gone. He's the best at his position in the draft class this year. We feel good about this position, the other positions in our system. Let's go ahead and draft that guy.
They picked 25th and 29th for the record.
Okay, cool, great. So 29th. They use that pick, and it's, well, hey, this guy is 37th on our list, but we're sitting at 29. We're not going to trade back for more.
We've already drafted a forward, whatever.
Exactly. I mean, at that point, they might have drafted a defenseman and a forward.
Yeah.
2 defensemen, 2 forwards, whatever. I mean, drafting this guy isn't going to change Jordan Binnington. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change any of that. If this guy's in the NHL by the time Binnington's contract ends, it will have gone pretty well.
And for the record, Hrabal is committed to UMass, so he's going the college route. So it's not the juniors route where you have 2 years to decide on the kid. You have 4 full
big
years.
Change here. He was supposed to go back to Omaha, the USHL.
Yeah. He
is no longer doing that and will be enrolling early at UMass. So he'll be at UMass next year.
Yep.
So that, for me, that ups his stock a little bit because it shortens that timeline. His timeline to turning pro gets 1 year shorter.
Yep.
And obviously, if you're taking him in the first round, you believe that you will be signing him someday.
Yeah.
You will want him to turn pro someday. Like so that's where if you're again, I use St. Louis because they have 3 first rounders. We're an Avs pod. We're obviously having this conversation about the Avs. The conversation is identical. It's just if he's 33rd on their board and they're sitting at 27, and they just say, hey, you know what? We don't have, Onanen is the only goaltender that we have in our system. He's been in the AHL for a couple of years now. He's really starting to push on the NHL tour. Yeah, it is Trent Minor erasure until he does something. I'm sorry, but that's just it.
You're not wrong.
I'm not trying to be a dick here.
It's just true that he hasn't even broken into an AHL job yet.
Exactly. So, when that happens, I'll start to take that more seriously. But, we're not there. So, with the Avs and Hrabal, the interest would be, we've got 1 pick. We don't pick again until the 5th round. Let's get a goalie. We've been taking shots on goalies in the 6th round and doing all this other stuff over the last few years. And not even coming close. We're not even getting a guy turning pro out of it. Trent Minor was the only one. And Zhigalov, they took Zhigalov last year, played in the OHL, and is now back in Belarus.
Yep.
Which feels like a step back.
Yep. Here's the thing with this for me. You kind of mentioned it with Annanen. I think if you look at the Avs and you realistically think Francouz has 1 year left on that deal, if your expectation is start of the 24-25 season, Annanen is stepping into that backup role, yeah, you need to fill a prospect spot of goaltender for sure. And that's where it starts to make sense for me. I still struggle with the goalie in the first round because if you're going to do this, you really cannot miss.
Why?
because you have to be successful in the first round. Like,
they drafted Oscar Olausson.
Yeah.
Right now,
And-
it looks like that's going to miss.
And that looks bad. And now if you're going to go miss again on a goalie, it's going to feel terrible.
I mean, missing is going to feel terrible. Position
I agree.
does not matter there.
The position doesn't matter there. What does matter there is there's a lot fewer positions or spots available for a goaltender than there is at any other position. So it's a lot easier to miss on one. Certainly when it comes to an NHL career.
Okay.
And that's my big concern there.
I'm not operating in that space of fear, though.
Okay.
I just think where I don't like this conversation is it's forcing it. It's not Jake Ottinger at the end of the first round where that's right where he was listed. He was listed as a guy in the 20s that you were really comfortable with taking in that space. And he was a realistic conversation for a lot of those teams in the 20s the year he got drafted. And when he did get drafted, like at 26 or 27, whatever it was that Dallas traded up for to draft him, it made sense. It just worked. You were like, yeah, he's that good. He belongs in this area. And with the conversation that you're having with Hrabal, Guyan, Brad mentioned Trey Augustine.
You're just not in that category quite.
Exactly. You're having a real conversation where you're saying if you're taking this guy at 37 instead of 27, you're feeling way better about it.
So let me ask you this then. We've talked a lot about the Avs trading the pick. That's mostly in the sense of them going out and getting a 2 center or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a world where they trade back?
Yes. And I think if you do that, if you move back, Chicago is everybody's favorite target because I think they have picks 35 and 55 of the second round. Yeah. So you have the third pick of the second round, and then you have a late second rounder as well.
The only other real options would be like Anaheim at 33 and 59. Or
see this from Brad where he says there's no reason they shouldn't trade the pick. Is living in this made-up world in which you can get teams to do whatever that you want them to do.
Yeah,
and those teams, there has to be a team that wants that pick for a reason, and it has to be value that makes sense. You're not just going to do it in order to do it because you've decided to make that trade. Chicago has to want to move up from 35 and 55 to 27. There's got to be somebody there that they want.
Obviously, things have to fall into place, but I will say there are a number of teams they can look at. You mentioned Chicago, Anaheim. Someone else mentioned Anaheim in the chat. You have
Detroit has
41, 42, and 43. Buffalo has 39 and 45.
That's actually weird that it worked out that they had 3 picks in a row.
Nashville has 46 and 47. If you're okay with moving that far back, there are teams they can work with, but you are right. Those teams would want someone at the end of the first round if they're willing to trade up.
That's where you have to wait till draft day to be like, we'll see.
Yeah.
And they have to give that value. If it's 35 and 75, I don't know that I want to do that deal.
Sure. You'd really be looking for. So at minimum, the Anaheim pick at minimum, you're moving up 7 spots into the first round.
Yeah.
You would really like another second for any team moving up into the first, right? Just value wise.
20 minutes late on this comment, my man. Yeah, I mean, value wise, like, the NFL draft is wonderful because somebody made up a chart and decided to put values next to all those. I don't know that the NHL has one of those. I have no idea how to value those picks. I'm assuming that organizations have something internal.
I mean, so there are charts out there of expected percentage of players picked there that make the NHL or whatever.
Yeah.
But actual valuation, it's really, really hard in the NHL because in the NHL, more than certainly the NFL and basketball, baseball can be a little weird with their draft. The NHL gets superstars out of random late round picks all the time.
I mean, it happens, yeah.
I get by all the time, I mean like maybe one a draft, but compared to other leagues, that's significantly more often. So
Okay.
there has long been this sentiment in the NHL of just accumulating more lotto picks gives you a better chance of hitting the lottery, right?
Yeah, but there's also a point where, like, where Chicago is, where they have 4 second-round picks, they have
Sure.
2 first-round. Like, you're not using all these.
Yeah, I mean,
Like it doesn't make sense to actually sit and draft
yeah, it makes more sense to give away your lotto picks for current value.
or consolidate them and move up for a better pick. Like it doesn't make sense for these teams to make all these picks, because if they sign all these guys, you only have 50 contracts you're allowed to do. If you have a 2-year window where you've made 25 picks,
Well, look, if we're
it's
sticking
hard
with
to sign all those
if
guys.
we're sticking with the lotto comparison, a first round pick is like getting a lottery ticket that is guaranteed to have the first 3 numbers correct, right? Like,
I mean, that's more like a top 10 pick.
sure, but
A first round pick is like the first number.
you understand the analogy, right?
Yes.
Like, that's my point. So, obviously, you want to maximize your chances of success when it comes to every single pick you make. And the best way to do that is either consolidate your picks and trade up, or get value for your pick and trade down and get multiple picks.
Yeah, and the Avs are in the world where, they might have to be having a conversation of, is it better for us if we're going to trade out of 27, is it better for us to trade down to let's say Columbus?
Sure.
And get their second and third round picks.
So 34 and what, like 66 or something?
Yeah, like one of the very first picks of the third round. Or would you rather trade down with a team and get next year's second round pick, where you have no idea where in the round that's going to be? You don't know how good that team's going to be. You don't know where they're going to finish, how it's all going to go. But it gives you, that gives you an asset that you can't turn around and use that day, but you use it. You could use it in a trade right then. You could use it at the deadline. You could use it at next year's draft. Just becomes part of your organization that you can actually make use of this thing again.
Well, and I
would you rather do something like that versus getting a high third? Like, I think that those are the conversations they're going to have.
So I do think that specific scenario is super interesting for Colorado, because what do they not have to play with? They don't have mid-round picks to trade this year.
Yeah.
So accumulating some to then use in another move, it makes a lot of sense on paper for Colorado to do something like that. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and that's where, if you get that second, if you do, let's go 35-55 example.
Just to make it easy, yep.
You trade 55 to New Jersey for Sharangovich.
Sure.
You've taken a player with the second round pick. You turned your first round pick into a high second and then an NHL player.
Roster player, yeah.
Do you feel like you had a pretty good day of business there? Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. Is your system, is your prospect system any like significantly better? No. But if you pick at 27, that won't be true either.
Look, for a team that's in a cup window, which the Avs are, anytime you turn a pick into an NHL roster player should be considered a win.
Yeah.
Now, you can get into conversations of, well, if you did it for a rental and this, that, and the other thing, sure, you'd like some term. Someone like Sharangovich, you would get some term on.
Yeah, he's an expiring RFA that you're probably going to give a multi-year deal to. That would be as close to what we talked about yesterday, running back Burakovsky.
Yep.
That would be the closest parallel to that deal.
So the point we're digging down at here is the Avs need to find value.
Yeah.
With their pick, whether it's taking the guy or moving back or trading the pick outright, they have a lot of work to do to find the best value they can out of the pick. And as you mentioned, the value out there is going to vary wildly depending on what other teams are looking for in the moment.
Yeah.
On that note, we are brought to you by the amazing folks over at American Raptors. If you don't know, they play at Infinity Park in Glendale. You can go check it out. You can get tickets to them for completely free. So it's literally a free day out on the town. Highly recommend you go check out Infinity Park. They have a bunch of amazing stuff there, including like an arcade at the arena. It's kind of dope. I don't know. You don't think of like an arena as like a place to just go hang out, but that's what it is. So you can go check it out there. Obviously, if you're a Raptors fan, you can jump on that as well. You can watch all of their matches live on ESPN Plus if you can't make it down there and you're a big fan of rugby. Some of the best rugby in the country gets played here in Colorado. If you didn't know, the men's and women's USA 15 teams do practice there. So the Raptors have some pretty good practice partners. Highly recommend you go check them out and follow DNVR Rugby on Twitter. Our man Colton Strickler does a fantastic job with that sport. He gets all sorts of amazing interviews and talks to everybody in the sport. So go check him out. Go follow DNVR Rugby on Twitter. Give a listen to the Rugby podcast if you're a fan, or if you're new, he's got 101 pods to hook you up with the sport. Also brought to you by FOCO. You can go to FOCO.com today. Just like the Avs had last year, the Nuggets bobbleheads for the championship are coming in to FOCO. So if you're a collector or you want some cool merch from the Nuggets chip, FOCO's the way to do it. You can use code DNVR to get 10% off your order on FOCO. They, of course, have licensed merchandise and apparel from all major sports teams. And a bunch of cool other stuff beyond just bobbleheads, a bunch of knickknacks and things like that are super cool to rep your team, whoever that might be, with FOCO.com. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. There you go. Someone getting their Manscaped order in, just like that. It's the way to do it. It's the way to do it right there. So when you look at pick 27, AJ, you kind of started getting into this conversation. The difference between pick 10 and pick 27 is a lot. You're not, even top 15, call it. I think you really should be, to call it a success, you should be drafting surefire NHLers in the top 15.
Yeah.
At 27, does it become a little bit easier for Colorado to say, you know what, this isn't a guaranteed prospect. This isn't someone we should really be hitting out of the park. We don't want to make this pick.
What do you mean?
I mean, because it's at 27, should they look to trade it more aggressively?
Because it's, I think this year they're really comfortable with the class.
Okay.
I think everybody is. Like, that's not an Avs specific thing.
For sure.
I think everybody's really comfortable with this draft class through about 50.
Okay.
And
so
then
if they have to make the pick, they won't feel bad about it.
Yeah, I think they'll look at it and they'll say, we're just going to take a guy. We'll take the top guy on our list. And, I'm sitting here making a case for, hey, take a goalie. I understand you're reaching a little bit, but it's only one pick. It's a little more valuable to you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, if they just sit there and they say, hey, we're just going to stick to our list, we're going to take the top guy on it and move on. Fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
I think that because of the dearth of assets in the organization, you could see a sense of urgency.
Yeah, I agree.
The problem is even if they, like, when all these people that have been messaging me over the last 24 hours about Elias Lindholm, because of the Flames,
allegedly no one wants to sign.
It's like, it's funny, you don't see Canadian fans hammering away to fold the Flames and move them to Quebec. Nobody wants to play for them either. Anyway,
so it would seem.
Yeah, no, I don't think like 27 it's just not a super valuable asset. Like, it's more
Sure.
valuable to the Avs as a first round pick. Like, oh, it's a first round pick, but it's 27.
Yeah, it's closer to a second round pick than a top 15 pick.
Yeah. Like, it's just not. Just not as interesting.
Definitely.
To be honest, even their 2024 pick is probably going to be more valuable because the team trading for it can say, okay,
maybe they don't win the Central.
yeah, if they don't win their division and then they don't make a conference final,
yeah,
it will be higher than 27. You could make an argument, like, it wouldn't be hockey is the way that it is, that you shouldn't feel insanely confident right now that the Avalanche are going to win the division and make the conference finals next year. So it could be more, next year's pick could be more valuable as a trade piece than this one. But in terms of just trying to make something happen, if the Avs got really desperate, and I don't think that this will happen, I really don't. But if they got really desperate and were trying to just force the issue of saying, hey, we're going to find a 2C that we can just lock in and let it be, and we're just going to not touch it. A set and forget guy, so we can be done with it for a few years, but one that won't also cost us Devon Taves. Like, we're just going to do what we have to figure this out for a few years, not Elias Lindholm or PLD or Mark Scheifele, where we lose that guy in free agency.
Sure. Locked up.
Yeah. Like a guy, like we're talking, this is the Kevin Hayes or Sam Bennett or, whatever conversation. Where you have a guy signed for at least a couple of years.
Yep.
You could see them on draft day burning up the phones and saying, hey, the Flyers are allegedly looking for another first round pick. You say, oh, hey, Kevin Hayes isn't going to get it done for us, but maybe we give you, Josh Manson.
Sure.
And you guys give us a prospect of some regard in return.
Piece that is
like
they're after there.
Yeah, maybe this is where my Nick Seeler dream continues. You say, hey, we'll give you Josh Manson, who John Tortorella would absolutely adore. Now, I don't know if Manson would approve to go there.
Probably.
I really don't know what that feeling would be. I know he doesn't really want to go out east, so seems unlikely.
I mean, just an example, right?
But yes, as an example, because I know Sam Girard's kind of a weird fit in there, so you can't just drop him into this and be like, here you go, Philly. Like, have at him. With Tony DeAngelo and Cam York, Rasmus Ristolainen. I don't really need another puck mover. They need some guys that can actually play some defense. And as much as I'm fine with Girard's defense, it's not. His calling card is being able to do both.
So, let me ask you this. How do you feel about the Avs' second and third round picks in recent history? Because I do think they've, I don't want to say turned the corner, but I think there's been a lot more promise in their second round and third round picks, starting from Connor Timmins in 2017. Timmins, obviously, the situation is what he is. I think a lot of people feel he's an NHLer when he can stay healthy. Then you have Annunen in the third round, which we're still waiting on because he's a goaltender. 2019, you have Drew Hellison. You feel pretty good about him being an NHLer over in Anaheim next year. Foodie, third rounder in 2020. Sean Barron's their 2021 second rounder. And then obviously they didn't have anything in 2022.
I mean,
do you think this organization is a bit more confident in their ability to pick in that range than they were 10 years ago?
Well, this was the whole reason that they moved on from
Heppel
to Klippenstein, was that they weren't happy with those results.
Yeah.
And so they said, hey, we want a different guy in charge here. And I think that you haven't gotten any NHL games out of these guys.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, true. I mean, like, you haven't gotten a consistent NHL player out of for the Avalanche. You haven't gotten that.
Definitely.
They used Timmins to get the goalie that won them a Stanley Cup. They used Hellison to get Lehkonen. Or yeah, you're right. And then Barron to get Lehkonen. Sorry.
Yeah.
So like the picks made in Klippenstein's era have turned into value elsewhere. Barron's is still TBD. Foodie is still TBD. We'll see how those are going.
Sure.
Like they feel like great picks now, but until they hit the NHL,
does it matter?
It really, like, until they are consistently in the NHL, we are NHL players. And I think Jean-Luc Foodie's right there. I think he's close. But until they are, you can't really give them credit and say they've turned the corner yet. You feel a lot better. I mean, you do feel a lot better. Helleson, if he finds a spot on that Ducks defense, you feel a lot better. Like a lot better. About where they have been headed. The problem is that they just don't have any of them, man. Like they just they don't. And they don't have an obvious candidate. You remember when they traded Ryan Graves for the Barons pick?
Yeah.
Like trading Ryan Graves was the obvious one.
Yeah.
They don't have an obvious guy because their roster is so top heavy now, salary wise, that it's like, look, you're not going to trade Logan O'Connor. He's too valuable.
Yep.
On that contract. I've seen some people with the Pavel Francouz stuff, and it's the same thing with Francouz. You don't save $2 million by trading Pavel Francouz because you have to replace him. That's going to cost you at least $1 million.
And you very likely get a worse backup goaltender that costs you games.
Exactly. And you're going to take that chance. You know, I know in my my big trade article last week, earlier this week, it's only Friday, I traded Francouz for Eric Comrie, but I also wrote in there why it doesn't work is because Francouz is a much better NHL player than Eric Comrie has
worse
been.
Backup, full stop.
Yeah, exactly. And the price is the Avs saved $200K.
Yeah.
In that swap. But the downgrade is significantly more costly than $200K.
Yep.
So that's where the Avs are in a really tough spot here. They don't have an obvious guy to trade.
Yep.
And if you were like, hey, trade Sam Girard, you don't want to trade him for futures.
You especially if you're giving up a top 6 forward or a top 4 defenseman, which is what Sam Girard is on the Avalanche.
Right.
You have to make your roster better if you're going to do that.
Think about how awful the Islanders have felt about getting 2 second-rounders for Devon Toews, who at the time of the trade was in the same position that Girard is currently in.
Yep.
As he was a second pairing guy.
Yep.
A good but not great player. Now it's obviously been a lot worse because Toews turned into a monster in Colorado. But the second rounders, like, those would not be sufficient in a Sam Girard deal.
Yep.
You're not just dumping Sam Girard to clear up $5 million. Right. You'd have to turn around and spend that $5 million to try and go find a replacement for Sam Girard.
The difference in that scenario is New York had their hands tied with Toews, right? They just weren't going to be able to afford to pay him.
Yep.
The Avs have Girard on a long-term contract.
For 4 more years.
Yep. So, not only that, but a contract that by the end of it will probably look pretty darn cheap.
Yeah.
Just based on the cap going up, let alone Girard's play. So
yeah, when the cap goes up in the range of $5 million each of the next 2 seasons, it's like getting a free Girard each year. Like, it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. So it really is an interesting spot to see how the Avs are going to navigate this. And the draft is where it starts, right? Are they going to do something aggressive, or are they just going to sit back and make the pick?
And look, this is an organization that has been patient.
For sure.
And they have been one that is they're not going to get. The Kemper thing was a major outlier for them. But they also knew that if they lost that goalie carousel,
Kemper or nothing,
that the Kemper option was still there. It was a break glass in case of emergency kind of thing, where they could say, hey, we're going to do this.
Yep.
right now, this 2C thing, Eric Howell signed today.
Yep.
If you saw that
Staying
contract,
in New Jersey.
that contract should be a good thing for the Avalanche, because if you're trying to sign now, Evan Rodriguez is a couple years younger
Yeah.
than Eric Howell, but
still, I mean, I guess Howell's numbers are better over the last 2 years, right?
So if you're Colorado, you're saying, hey, that guy just signed 3 by 3.2. How about we give you 4 by 3.5 or 3.7?
Boy,
To me, that should help
would you
Colorado.
Would you even need to go that high? I wonder.
I mean, right now, if you look at the evolving hockey model, they have Erod projected for 4 by 4.8.
Okay, well, I would not give him that for sure.
I wouldn't either, but they also had Hella projected at a 3 or 4 year deal right in the $4 million range.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I would do 3 at 3.5 tomorrow for Erod.
So would I? I would do 4. I have no issues there.
Yeah, at 3.5, the year number almost doesn't matter. But yeah, I do think it will be interesting as more and more of the market starts to get set.
Yeah.
Because you end up in this weird spot in this time frame of leading up to the draft and then between the draft and free agency, where a bunch of free agents end up staying with their teams.
Mm-hmm.
But they still kind of set the beginning line for the market on some of those free agents because of what they got paid. Now, you have to take in hometown discounts and things into effect there a little bit, but nonetheless, those are jumping off points for every NHL team's negotiations, right? So the more deals that come out like that, probably the more it helps Colorado of guys getting, I don't want to say underpaid, but maybe less than what is expected.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's also that looming conversation of the Gavrikov, what he did.
Yep.
How many guys are going to be out there? Would Ryan O'Reilly? I think Ryan O'Reilly is, that guy. Like,
if he's willing to take a shorter deal,
willing to take a 2-year deal, and say, "Hey, give me 2 years at $6 million," where the Avs
can go.
All right, we can pay
again. That. Yeah.
And then in 2 years, he hits the free agent market right as the cap jumps up a bunch.
$10 million in cap space. Yeah.
So chat's question of, doesn't it feel like Kevin Hayes will be our 2C next year with Flyers retaining money? Not my idea of what to do, but just my gut speaking. I don't know. It's one of the many, many, many options out there. I don't think that the Avs hate that idea, especially given their long-term affinity for Kevin Hayes. I wonder what the appetite is of Philadelphia to retain money for 3 more years. That's where you don't see. That's where a lot of these deals fall apart. Where a lot of these things just don't make sense. Is that teams aren't going to retain for several years.
I mean, I'm sure Seattle would be willing to do that for the right price. But that's the problem, right? What's it going to cost? What's that?
I said Philadelphia.
Oh, did I say Seattle? My bad. Yeah, Philly.
You just
different coast entirely.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what happened with the Kraken? What are they doing?
No, Philly, of course. The problem with all of these ideas is you don't know what it costs.
Yeah,
we talked about this the other day. In a vacuum where Seattle just wants to I said Seattle again. I don't know. I can't not do it. Where Philly just wants to get rid of Kevin Hayes, is willing to retain and just give him away. Of course the Avs would do it.
I mean, they should, but you do have a very real, Kevin Hayes is already 31. 3 more years, he's going to be 34. How effective is he going to be?
There's some drawbacks there, but again, how enticing a given player is, giving away for nothing, of course he's going to be a lot more enticing than a team saying, hey, we want a first round pick for that retention or whatever.
To be honest, if they wanted 27th overall and just 27th overall for Kevin Hayes, and they
Still
retained,
interested, yeah.
they retained to get him to $5 million per year, I'd probably do it just to be done with it.
Yeah.
And he's a fine enough player. He's coming off a career year points wise. He's a guy they've liked for years. He's big. You know, he's not going to be a major misfit in Colorado. It's fine.
Yeah.
It would be fine. Like it.
I do think the Avs fan base has been spoiled a little bit with trades in the Joe Sakic era, certainly the modern post-Wah Joe Sakic era.
Yeah,
because
no kidding.
the dude like only puts out bangers when it comes to trades, it feels like.
He's
not all
Taylor
trades
Swift
end up
of
that
GMs.
good. Yeah.
It's just hits, baby. The next cup that they win, that'll be their Eras tour.
Yeah, exactly. Like at this point, you've now had multiple people like go on media stations and be like, all right, rule number 1, don't trade with Joe Sakic. So I do wonder if it's the fan base's expectations might be a little bit high when it comes to Colorado trading for pieces. We'll see. On that note, we are brought to you by the people over at Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. You can get 8 different kinds on tap down at the DNVR bar, or you can find it at your local liquor store using the Breck Beer Locator online at breckbrew.com. They have a ton of flavors, literally dozens of flavors of Breck Brew. So I guarantee you they have a beer for you, including a bunch of fresh new summer beers like the Mountain Beach Sour. If that's your style, go get into that one. I've always been a big fan of the Strawberry Sky. Tons of other ones to check out too. So they've got a beer for you no matter what the weather, what is like out there, which it's actually really nice today. Hopefully the rain is done. Please be done, rain. We're over you. Also brought to you by the people over at Bacchus and Schenker. The weather's been crazy, so maybe there's been a car accident. Call 222-2222 today if you've been in an accident that is not your fault. Even if you were not in a car, if you got hit on a bike or something like that, if it was a rideshare situation, you weren't driving, or it doesn't even have to be accident related as far as cars. If you were injured at work, anything like that, Bacchus and Schenker can help you get what you deserve. Again, you can press 2 for a while to get a hold of them or go to coloradolaw.net today. They'll give you a free consultation. If they think you have a case, they will take it on for completely free. You pay nothing until you win your case. They do a lot of that, by the way. They've won over $1 billion for their clients over the years, and they've been doing it for over 25 years. So they know their way around these types of things. They'll get you what you deserve. Bacchus and Schenker, press 2 for a while or go to coloradolaw.net today. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. AJ wearing the Ferrari hat today, so set to.
I wore yesterday too.
Did you? I didn't even notice.
I did. Yeah.
You just enjoy disappointment, or?
Yeah. I mean, my life has been too good sports wise, so I had to embrace a team. I had to embrace a team that was going to hurt me.
Okay, fair enough.
Like the Rockies are beyond the ability to hurt me at this point.
Right, it's just numb at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Although that Zach Veen news yesterday really made me feel bad for him. That's
the one thing you were like, hey, at least the young kids can play. Nope.
Yeah, I mean Brendan Rodgers for the whole year. Now Zach Veen, like you're just like, dude, this is like their entire pitching staff. Like, yeah. I don't know.
Unnecessary. Cruel and unusual.
It's one thing for the Rockies to be incompetent, for everybody to be like, yeah, they suck, but now they're unlucky too. Jesus. And that's where at least Ferrari, you're looking at Ferrari and you're going, they're just bad at what they do.
At least that's just incompetence.
Yeah, exactly. You just look at Ferrari and you're like, this is self-inflicted.
We are checking.
They changed team principal and nothing else changed.
Like, right.
All right. Now they've changed their social media manager. Like, all right, we'll see how it goes.
It's an interesting question from FU in the chat who says, why does it feel like NHL players have the decline of that of NFL running backs? I mean, I don't think it's that aggressive. NFL running backs
definitely
declines are like absurd, but
yeah.
but-
It's mostly because when running backs get to the league, they're already 23
torn
or
up,
24.
yeah.
They've already been hit about 2,000 times, and they get through their rookie contract, and very few hold up through the life of a second contract.
But the point he's getting at still holds true when you compare it to basketball and baseball. The reality is NHL is a physical sport with a lot of physical contact in it, and that does shorten players' careers. It's when a player plays their entire career Iron Man style, like when a player gets to Patrick Marleau's level of games or Phil Kessel's 1,000-game streak, those are huge anomalies in the NHL.
Yeah.
It's just the reality of what is the fastest sport powered by humans, and those bodies crashing into each other all the time.
Yep.
So,
yeah, NHL players get into their, the regulars get well into their 30s, though.
Yeah, I'm not saying they have short careers.
And then after that, we'll see. But
yeah, it's also a league where you do get into it relatively young, right? It's not like baseball where you regularly see 25, 26, 27-year-olds be rookies.
Yeah.
And not that there aren't any of those in the NHL.
Baseball's different because they have their minor league climb is so lengthy,
incredible. Right.
Like I'm lamenting Zach Veen's lost season, and he'll be 22 next year.
Yeah. Actually made it to the MLB super quickly.
Yeah. He'll probably actually be in MLB by the time he's 25. Like he'll probably be established by 25.
Yep. Yeah, it's unfortunately some of those realities just come with it being a physical high octane sport. And yeah, maybe in 50 years we look back at this and think it's barbaric the way I think some of us look at fighting in the league now, certainly when it comes to stage fights and things like that.
Yeah, which luckily are
more or less out of the league at this point.
Yeah, pretty much a thing of the past.
But without significant change to the existence of hockey as we know it, I don't know how you entirely eliminate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, back to the NHL draft and this pick for Colorado. Don't need a specifics here for you, but AJ, what is their best thing that Colorado can do? Is it making the pick? Is it trading for other picks? Or is it using the pick to get a roster player?
And without knowing which roster player, I think that's a really hard answer. But
that's the point of the question. Yeah,
I do think that that's my preferred route. Is use it to get a guy that helps your NHL team right now.
All right,
you just need that. As much as this draft class is good, and as much as I would like you and I have for something to do on Wednesday, I just think that it's probably easiest.
Certainly the most straightforward path.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm of the opinion they use what I would do is I would use 2 first rounders and try and go get somebody good.
Solve your problems. Yeah.
Yeah. And try to find a sweet spot somewhere in there of not the Scheifele's and not these guys that are pushing their 30s. I would try and use both first rounders and Sean Barons to try and go and get somebody that's 25 years old.
I too would be very interested in that. I imagine it would be very, very difficult to sort that trade out, though.
Yeah, but that's the, just we're already in Philly, but
This
that's
is
your Morgan Frost conversation.
sure
Where
your dream best case scenario.
Yeah, and Morgan Frost, I mean, I think Morgan Frost is probably a bad fit there because I think Philly is serious about trying to win games.
Yeah, I don't see Philly letting him go, but not the point.
I don't either, but their cap friendly was sitting in front of me, so that was my answer. I would say maybe Montreal with Kirby Doc.
Yeah, go to Buffalo with
be,
like Peyton Krebs or something. Yeah.
Well, I would want somebody better than Krebs.
I hear what you're saying, but you're looking for a young center. That
exactly. I mean,
have
Casey Middlestat, man. Like Casey Middlestat's
yeah.
another one where
See,
I'm having that conversation.
I love Owen Tippett, Race Rocks fan, but he's not a center, so it's kind of doesn't make a ton of sense for Colorado.
Yeah. It just doesn't.
Yeah. Not that, like, if they were giving away Owen Tippett, you should be all over it. But if the Avs are actively seeking a deal, they should be looking for a center.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I maybe like really going back to Montreal and Kirby Doc, especially if Montreal takes, let's say Will Smith gets to them at 5 and they take Will Smith.
Sure. Have a replacement for him there, kind of.
With Suzuki and Dvorak.
Yeah.
Then you throw in Will Smith, and it's kind of like, okay, I know Dvorak plays plenty of wing as well, but that's one where it's like, hey, Kirby Doc, the Avs loved Kirby Doc in his draft year. They were fully prepared to take that guy in his draft year.
Yep.
He's 22 years old. He's signed for $3.3 million for the next 3 years. That's not a great that's not a solution with confidence, I don't think.
I would agree. Not
just because he hasn't had that big breakout, has not proven it. I mean, he had a much, much better year last year than anything he ever did in Chicago. No surprise. But you're still dreaming a little bit there. Like, you're between Kirby Doc and Alex Newhook, you're kind of having the same conversation.
And we've talked about this, though, right? Yes, in a perfect world, a star player gets money retained and the Avs go out and solve that problem. But the reality of this offseason is somewhere the Avs are going to have to find some value. Maybe that's not necessarily at 2C, but they're going to have to find contracts that players outperform.
Yeah, and instead of all these conversations about Kuznetsov and get them to retain, and Hayes and get them to retain, and Henrique and get them to retain, and all this, with Kirby Doc, you're like, hey, we just went and did this thing.
And over the last 5 years, you have a lot of faith in the Avs professional scouting to get these things right, because they've gotten it right a lot.
And then for Colorado's guys at the top to work a deal that they're comfortable with, that they can live with the price of.
Yep.
And for me, would 2 first-round picks right now for Kirby Doc be probably too rich given what he's done in the NHL so far? Probably. But do you take that chance
and has a 60-point season?
Exactly. Then you're looking at it and you're saying, even if he has a 50-point season, you're saying he's only 22 years old. We've got this now. Yep. We're good.
Yep. So there's always going to be some risk there, but sometimes you have to take that risk.
Yeah, and that's where it's like I 2 first round, but one of those first round picks, 27th overall. Again, on its own, not super valuable. Not going to be incredibly valuable to Montreal.
And obviously you can't see the future, but being realistic, you're expecting Colorado's first round pick next year to be late 20s at best.
You would say the kind of delta that you're working around is 25.
Yeah, barring unforeseen things.
Yeah. You kind of just say 25-ish and go from there.
Yep. Okay. I think we can wrap up today's show unless there's anything else you want to add, AJ.
I mean, the answer to this question of why spend assets on Doc at 3.3 for 3 years when you can sign Erod for free at 3.5 for 3 years. One, if you could sign him for 3.5 at 3 years, I think it would be done.
Yep.
I would hope that the Howla deal would get the Avs are closer to that point. But I think if that was all Erod was asking for. But the other answer there is Kirby Dach is 22 and Evan Rodriguez is 29.
You need both of those players in your lineup.
Yeah, and getting both of them. You want to talk about cost efficiency? Having your 2C cost you 3.3, and your 3C cost you whatever Newhook's going to cost, and Erod costing you 3.3. If all of those combined end up costing you $9 million, is that better than going and getting Elias Lindholm and paying him $9 million next year? I don't know the answer to that, but I think I would like that world more.
Yeah, same. That's half of your middle six solved for $9 million. That's pretty good.
Yeah. And that's for multiple years.
Right. Indefinitely solved.
Yeah. And instead of you're using those same assets to go and get Elias Lindholm and watch him leave after a year, or you play Sophie's Choice here, you keep Elias Lindholm and Devon Taves walks.
Yeah, you're losing something either way there.
Exactly. And this would be that kind of middle ground. I don't even know if Montreal's interested in moving Kirby Dach. I wouldn't be, but
we'll just have to wait and see.
Anyway, I think that's where I would go with it, is I would try and make the big deal for a younger guy and not all these guys that we're talking about that are already 30 years old.
Well, once the Avs do whatever they do, I'm sure people will love it, people will hate it, and we'll be here to talk about it either way.
I guarantee you that is exactly how it goes. People will love it. Some people will hate it. Why do my fingers look orange?
You are kind of look orangey. I think it's just the way the light's popping off of it.
It's got to, because when I look at it, it's not. Anyway, that was weird.
AJ's Cheeto fingers.
I wish I had a Cheeto at least. If I'm going to look like one, I might as well be, because I ate too many of them. Damn it.
Few big things. We are doing a big mock draft with ALLCITY on Tuesday, the day before the draft. So you can come see all of our PHNX and CHGO's thoughts on how the draft might go. And then we will be doing a live big draft show for the draft itself. As always, come hang out with AJ and I as we make fun of picks and stuff.
Roast my roster Monday.
That too. Yes, we also are doing that. So get your rosters in on Cap Friendly. Put DNVR in the title. So I'm
looking at a Cap Friendly as be a GM right now. You guys have done this in mass. Thank you. I always love that. I think it's very funny when people who don't know what DNVR is get upset.
Yep.
Because they're like, what the hell's going on here?
It's very funny. Thank you for those who've already submitted. Submit some more. Also, a couple more videos of potential prospects that the Avs could be looking at 27 coming your way on the YouTube channel. So be sure to like and subscribe. Lots of content. It's a busy next 15 or so days for us. We appreciate all y'all. We're going to get out of here, and we will talk to you in the next one.